Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show.
The Ontario Disability Employment Network is wrapping up the Rethinking Disability Conference today in Richmond Hill, Ontario. In November also happens to be Indigenous Disability Awareness Month. So on Monday, I had a chance to speak with several speakers from the event. I was able to interview them remotely from Studio 7 right here in Toronto. And one of the people I had a chance to speak with was Lisa Spencer. Lisa is the communications specialist for the Nunavummi Disabilities Makinnasuaqtiit Society. Lisa chatted about the intersection of disability and Inuit culture. Here's my conversation with Lisa now. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Alex. How are you?
I'm not too bad. So let's dive into this topic. So what is the current landscape of disability within the Inuit community?
That is a very loaded question. So the landscape that is involving disability in the Inuit community, first and foremost, is that disability is heavily stigmatized in the territory. There is no direct translation for the word disability. And so for us as service providers, it can be rather complicated in terms of reaching the community and providing support where needed when the community that we are servicing is hesitant to even adopt the label. So what we do in Nunavut is we put emphasis on the barriers to participation and barriers to access, and allow Nunavummiit to come forward and self-identify.
And so your conversation always at ODEN focuses in on the intersectionality between the Inuit culture
Correct.
and disability. So why is it, and you've touched on this already, but can you expand why it's so important to really focus in on this intersection and the unique nature of the barriers that are faced within the territories?
Absolutely. So when we're looking at disability, as I said, it is a colonial construct, this idea that disability equates less capable. So there's that hesitancy to adopt the label. But even above all else is that the services and supports typically provided for people with disabilities, is actually centered around like a European mindset. We have a very colonial structure, working 9 to 5 and, working to get a paycheck. This idea of work in general is not quite the same as it is in Nunavut. So what their priority is being a good Inuit, learning the skills, the knowledge, sharing traditions, helping each other, working as a community. This idea of independence is more about interdependence and interrelation. So when we're looking at supported employment and the disability landscape in the North, we need to make sure that we include the voices, perspectives, and also the decision-making of the very people that we serve.
I'm curious, as a service provider, is there added challenges or barriers that you face? Because as you mentioned, a lot of the terminologies, these ideas is very colonial based, that there can be a bit of a disconnection between kind of what the philosophy or focus of disability employment or service in the rest of the country is opposed to within the territories. So do you face further challenges on trying to not only receive support from the broader disability community and support network, but also catering your service to those in your community?
Absolutely. So one of the barriers that we come across as service providers is that a number of the supports and services, like I said, center around this westernized idea. So it's not just about taking something that already exists and adding like little tweaks to it to make it more Inuit friendly. It's about taking something and reinventing it and making sure that Inuit are part of that decision-making process in order to ensure that it is culturally specific, culturally relevant, and does not cause further harm. And so in that way, how we kind of come across that barrier is we make sure that we build a rapport, have relationships, talk to people one-on-one in group settings, go to community where community is happening and have these conversations. And ultimately, when we find that someone does not necessarily relate to the concept of disability, they are still eligible for our services once we really start to have these conversations and to say, well, actually, we can provide support, we can provide services. And this is something that is very common in Nunavut. And we find ways to make it more culturally appropriate. A lot of on the land programs, a lot of culturally specific arts and crafts kind of programs. These are ways that we can infuse Inuit culture with supported employment initiatives that are very common in the South. And
so in terms of the landscape up north, are there multiple service providers like yourself, or is it something where you've had to really kind of build from the ground up and really create a space for people that didn't exist prior?
Well, supported employment in general is actually a very large industry in Nunavut, particularly because Nunavut population is 85% Inuit, and that is the population that is vastly unemployed, overrepresented in that population. So supported employment is a very big initiative up there. Where our service is a little bit different is that we focus primarily on disabilities. And so Nunavummi Disabilities Makinnasuaqtiit Society is actually the only organization that covers all disabilities, all age groups, and in all 25 communities in the territory.
And for other organizations and folks elsewhere in the country, how can they get involved to help support you and the work that you're doing to help the community up north?
Absolutely. So if there's any interest in involving Nunavummiut, it would be helpful to involve us right from the start so that we can be part of that decision-making process and make sure that what we plan on implementing is actually takes into consideration the Inuit culture and Inuit language even right from the start. We're not tweaking it. We're building something from the foundation up.
And Lisa, like the work you're doing is so important. It's something where, you know, I myself didn't even truly consider just the unique difference in terms of having to have so focused within the Inuit community and how different it would be or present itself from elsewhere in the country. So where can folks go to learn more about the work that you and your organization is doing?
Absolutely. So I'm well aware that Nunavummi Disabilities Makinnasuaqtiit Society is a mouthful. We do go by the acronym NDMS, and you can also find us at nuability.ca or nuability for any of our social media handles. So that's NUABILITY.
Okay, perfect. Lisa, thank you so much. I really hope that we can catch up down the road and check in on the work that you and your colleagues are doing. Thank you so much for all chatting with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And that was my conversation with Lisa Spencer. So Lisa is the communication specialist with the Nunavummi Disabilities Makinnasuaqtiit Society. The NDMS is the only cross-disability organization in Nunavut. And as you heard Lisa say, to learn more about their services and support, visit nuability.ca, nuability.ca.
Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-télé or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-télé or download the podcasts wherever you listen.